everyone, this is Maureen and welcome to my first video on my new channel, which is Creation Station Studios. And the first project that I've been playing around with and had some requests for a video tutorial was how I made my watercolor paper flowers, paper roses more specifically. This was my very first one that I made. It's a little bit lopsided, but not all roses are perfect. And this is just copy paper and cheap watercolor from Michaels and a cotton swab for the base. Now, I didn't do this, but I thought it would be really neat to wrap this in some green floral tape, and then it would actually look like a stem and you could use them in a ton of things. So you have one that's 2 inches and one that's 2.5 inches. And again, depending on the size rose you want, you're going to change and adjust. But as you can see, you can make one rose from one sheet of copy paper. Start with a small one, fold it in half, fold it in half again. And this is an important piece. The folded edges need to be at the top. You're actually going to cut the open end. You do not want anything folded. If you'd like, you can trace a petal shape. I usually just use my judgment, but if you feel more comfortable, it's not the greatest petal shape, but you get the picture. If you do use a pencil, you want to make sure that you erase any pencil lines on that top rose because they will show. All right, now I've got my little petal stack here. And you just cut a small slit, about 1/2 inch, 1 centimeter at the bottom. Put those off to the side. And you do the same for your larger strip. Again, all your folded edges at the top. If you'd like, draw your petal shape. Draw it a little nicer than mine. And it doesn't have to go all the way up to the top. Use your judgment. I like these because they don't need to be perfect, because every time you look at a rose, they're all going to be slightly different. And a little imperfection in your cutting or your size of your petals actually makes it look like a more realistic flower. Alright, I have my petals, and again, cut the bottom slit. Now this is going to be more important for this set of petals, and you'll see why in a minute. Now at this point you need to get your cotton swab, and I pulled a little bit and cut off the majority of the cotton at the top, but left a bit at the bottom. It'll make it easier to glue, but I didn't want all this. I didn't want it to show in the middle of the flower. And then you cut off the bottom end, because this is what's going to go into your styrofoam. So that's all ready. For this part, you can individualize your petals. I think it looks neat. They're not all the same. You don't have to. But some of them I wanted a little bit different. And for these smaller petals, you need to have something to roll it on. You're going to take the edges and roll towards the middle. Hold it for a few seconds, let it go. Other side, roll towards the middle. Oops. Now, as you can see, you have a curled petal. The smaller the roll, the tighter the center is going to be. So sometimes I like to use a smaller stick to roll on for the very center petals, and then a larger one as we roll outwards. Doesn't have to be even, doesn't have to be perfect. But go ahead and do that for all of your small petals. When you're all done rolling, you end up with 8 small petals, and those are going to form the inside of your rose, that tightly curled center. Now we're going to work on the petals that go on the outside, the larger ones. First step is you are going to put some glue. I don't like to use hot glue for this because you really don't need to. A glue stick is really best, and I haven't had any of them come loose. And you fold this over, fold the one tab over another, and then you get a curved petal shape, just like that. And it doesn't matter if it's not even here because you're going to take care of that later. Go through and do that for all of them except the last 3. I'm going to leave the last 3 just like this. All right. So I have 5 of the large petals like a little bowl, and then I have 3 that are just flat. It will make sense when we start to put it together. For these petals, you're actually going to roll from the corner. Let me move these so you can see what I'm doing here. Roll these backwards. So the other ones you rolled towards the center. These you're going to roll backwards. So you get this. And you'll notice that if some of them don't turn out exactly the way you want as you're putting the flower together, because they will get kind of smashed and moved around, you can adjust them when they're wet from the watercolor, and it'll work very nicely. So don't get too nervous if, oh, that petal doesn't look perfect, I don't like the way it turned out. So that's what you're looking for on your petal. Go ahead and do all the rest. All right, once you have all of your petals curved, you are going to start putting them together. You're going to find your curliest small petal and really get that one tight. I like to hold it, and then you're going to cut off just a little bit, half a centimeter, 1/4 of an inch off the bottom, because you want the very center to be a little bit smaller than the rest. You take your cotton bud end of your cotton swab and I like to put a whole dab of glue all over it. Place it in the middle. Now be careful, I use a high temp glue gun, so it's really hot. But I found this is the best way to get them to stick in the beginning. Okay, that is the start of your rose. You don't have to have it completely glued down. Now this, you can see, is open. It doesn't matter because as you keep adding petals, it's going to get tied down, tied down. Now the only trick to this is you want to make sure that you cover the opening with the middle of the next flower. So you don't want an opening and an opening together, otherwise it's not going to look nice. So you want to make sure that the middle goes over that last opening, and then you're going to get more of a petal effect. And you probably only need one little dollop of glue on the end for each petal, and it's going to grow just like that. Again, cover up that seam from that last flower. And you want to get a little bit looser with every petal that you add. Sorry for the glue gun noise. It's probably really loud. And you can see the center starting to form. Sometimes you need a little bit more glue, no worries. Fortunately, hot glue is really cheap. And again, you could probably use, like I said, Scott's Quick Dry or another adhesive with a small point. But I'm a hot glue fan. And as you carry on, as it starts to get larger, you probably do want a dollop of glue on both ends of the petal, because the base is getting wider and wider, so it's not going to stay curled. And now I'm starting to angle them out a little bit. See how I left a little bit of gap here because I want it to look more organic and like the rose is starting to open up. Because I only have 4 petals left. So we need it to start looking a lot more open. I'm really into making flowers lately. I'm also gonna put up a video about some crocheted flowers that I love to make and some uses for them. A lot of times I love to make certain projects, but I can't think of a use for them once they're made. But I came up with a really neat idea for using the flowers. Just use your judgment as you go along with how wide you want the flower to look. You may want a really closed flower, and that's fine, but as you see, I'm starting to make mine more open. You can vary the size of the petals if you want to make teeny tiny roses. You can even make them bigger if you want to make really large roses. It's totally up to you. I just love that this is from one sheet of paper. This is recycled paper, things that came out of my printer that I didn't need, or blank sheets that came out when I printed something. I really love recycled art projects, and this is a really fun one. Would also work if you use different color petals, different papers. If you didn't watercolor it, that would look really cool. Lots of ideas. Book pages, magazine pages, maps. Really interesting variety you would get. And we're really getting to see a beautiful center. Last one of the tiny ones. I'm going to place that right there. Also, if you want a fuller flower, you can cut another strip of petals. You're not limited to 8 small and 8 large by any means. You can, if you feel like, oh, this one needs some more inner petals or this one needs some more outer petals, you can absolutely cut some more and keep going. All right, I love how my center turned out. I'm very pleased with that. Now I'm ready to add my outside petals. You start with the ones that have the bowl shape that you glued. And these are going to sit on the outside. I prefer to cut this edge off. I find it sits better. You don't have to, but I like to cut that point that overlaps off. Glue strings. It works better for me, but do whatever works best for you. So now what happens is you want to hug this petal around the center and, ooh, sorry about that, glue to the base. I don't put it right at the bottom because I don't want the center to be too far up. I want the petals to be a little bit higher. So I glue it just a little bit above the base, and then I get this petal slightly higher than the middle, the center. And once you add these, you can absolutely, they sometimes get a little squashed as you're in the gluing process. You can actually refold them, shape them a little bit. That's why I like the hot glue. You don't have to wait for it to dry. Another really good way is to take some scissors and curl like you're going to curl ribbon. That gives you a really nice curvy edge as well. All right, this is my base flower, and now I have 3 outside petals left that are a little bit different. They don't have the bowl, and that is so that you can mold them a little bit better. See, I want to add one here, and it makes them more open. So it makes the rose flare out a little bit more. Gives you more flexibility to do that. If you don't like that, you can glue the bottom of those as well, but I like that it flares out a little bit more personally. So I put glue on both sides of the cut and adhere. And that flower is really starting to open. I need another one here. This is looking kind of empty on this side. I'm trying to be quiet with when I set the glue gun down. And I think I'll put this last one. Where do I want to put this last one? Sometimes you even can slide them in or cut them, this piece, to make it fit. I know where I want this to go and it's just not cooperating. There, that's exactly where I want it to be. So cut this one a little bit more so it can sneak in with the other petal, and away we go. And the more you make, the easier it will be to judge how you want your petals to look. All right. I am very pleased with this one. And I start off with the small brush. Wet your brush, and I want the center to be a little bit darker, so I'm going to mix some yellow and orange together and get a little bit more water and just start going inside. Inside the folds of the paper and watercolor. I guess you could paint them before you put it together, but if you do that, you have to wait for them to dry and they might not be as sturdy, so I prefer to do this. For some reason it's really relaxing, and as you can see, the light isn't too good, but I made the center a little bit darker, and as I'm coming out of the flower, I'm making it lighter and lighter and lighter, just to give it a little bit of depth. You can absolutely paint it all the same color, it doesn't matter. I just wanted to change it a little bit, change it up. Again, these are really cheap watercolors and they work beautifully, so you absolutely do not need anything fancy for this. And the little brush really allows you to get down in those center petals. Alright, this is now watercolored, and as you can, I don't know if you can tell, but these petals, these outside ones, are very, very weak. And so you want to be very careful that you kind of stick them together so that they don't flop completely down. But I'm very pleased with how this one turned out. I really like it. This camera angle doesn't really do it justice, but it's really gorgeous if you look at it from the right angle. I really like the darker color in the center going out to the lighter color. I think it's very complementary, and when this dries I will have another opportunity to, or as it dries, to fold and curl some more of these petals exactly the way that I want. But that is the basics of creating these watercolor paper flowers. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I will put up some pictures of some other versions that I did with different types of paper so you can see what else you can do with this project. I would love to see what you create. Thank you for watching. Leave any questions or comments that you have in the comment box below, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.